Hi guys, it's Jessica here, and I thought that I would make a restringing video for my my new girl that has just come in. This is my Twigling Oryx, and she is in the new teal, and you have the options of either a more blue color or a mint color, and I chose the mint. And she came in, so today's Monday, and she came in Friday evening. So I took her apart and I've sueded her joints. Doll nudity, sorry guys, kind of hard to avoid, but I've sueded her joints with a, this actually is a thicker suede in the hips. And it's actually a real suede. It definitely can potentially transfer this color, which it's my doll, so I'm not worried about it. And so far I really haven't had a problem with it. All the other joints, I used a much thinner faux suede that is very thin. It was actually some suede that, some faux suede that Miss Mantis gave me years ago. And as far as how I suede these dolls and make the pattern for the sueding, I will link the Den of Angels article that explains it way better than I ever could. It's got pictures, it's illustrated, it's a very good article, so I'll link that in this video in the description. People have asked me to make a video or explain it, and it's like I can't do any better than what they already did in that article. So, but I have a pattern, and the girls are a little bit different through different generations, and I have some pattern adjustments. I have a pattern for the mini girls too, so that kind of speeds things along because I don't have to make a new pattern every time. I at least have my original pattern. But okay, so I'm going to put this girl together, and so things that I find really essential and helpful is you've got to have tools. That's the difference between hurting yourself or hurting your doll, and being able to put them together without injuries to yourself or your doll. Things that are good to have. If you can get a hold of, this is very inexpensive. It is a restringer, and you can't use it for every doll, of course. I got this one through Volks' USA website, and I can use it for a lot of dolls, especially the bigger ones. And then this is specifically for a head puller, and it's available through Luts, and you can order Luts through Denver Dolls and also Fabric Friends and Dolls. They are a Luts dealer, I believe, so you can order that through them. It used to be in stock all the time through Mint on Card, and it's not. Mint on Card, of course, went bye-bye, unfortunately, so we don't have that anymore. But you can still get a hold of these. And the other thing that is very, very useful to have is hemostats. These are, what's another name for them? Clamps, I guess. This one is probably my favorite for restringing because it's a little bit longer. I would say that if you have at least 2 of these, 3 is better. You're really going to, it's really going to help you out if you have these. And you can order these very cheaply online through AliExpress and eBay. You can get these. These are all inexpensive, Pakistani grade. So they're very inexpensive. And one of these I know I got in the fishing section of Walmart when I was really desperate one day. So those are really, really critical and help you out a lot. A long ribbon of some kind, this is helpful. And then at least 2 thick, strong sticks. So I'm using these old paintbrushes that aren't usable as paintbrushes anymore, but I've kept them because they are this really thick, strong wood. So you could use, if they were really sturdy chopsticks, you could use those. And so having at least 2 of those can be really helpful for you too. Okay, so this is a Artifex Kindred Oryx, or Twigling Oryx, and she is she's a relatively easy doll to restring for such a large doll. She's like 65, 66 centimeters, large, heavy doll. But what's helpful is that instead of the string going all the way down to the tips of her feet, she's strung through her hips, and then from her hips to her head, and then of course her arms. So that does make things a little easier. Now here's the part I'm going to admit that I don't know how people can possibly restring such a big doll without the use of their feet. I really don't. I guess if you had some sort of clamp system set up on your desk, it would need to be softened and cushioned. I could maybe imagine doing something like that, but I use my feet. I do usually wear socks just because I'm cold-blooded and have cold feet, so I'm usually wearing socks. But yes, if I have to restring a big doll especially, I'm going to use my feet, or I'm going to use my legs to brace in my legs. I just don't know how you would do it without. So let's start with, maybe we'll start with a little bit easier. So it's important that before you string the torso to the hip, hopefully you guys can see that, it's important to string the arms first, because it's going to be a lot, anyways, I think so. I think it's a lot easier to string the arms first. So let me see. I'm gonna try to bring that closer down, so hopefully you guys can see. Okay, there's her S-hook. So when it comes to these little cuppy things, these have changed over the years for the dolls, and I don't believe there's ever a difference though between the left and the right. If there is, I've never really noticed a difference. So that part, it doesn't really matter. But these are labeled. The lower arm and the elbow joint is labeled with the right-left little R or L. The upper arm is not labeled, but the way it looks, I can usually tell the difference. Sorry about that. Because here's the bicep, which is a little bit bigger, and then the triceps in the back are a little flatter. So I can usually tell from that which direction, which upper arm goes to which. But if you think you're going to have trouble, then when you'll want to keep track of it if you think you're going to have problems with it. So I have not changed these. These are the original strings she came with. She's brand new, so I'm not going to change her strings. If you were going to change your doll's strings, you can use the previous string that was used to measure a new string to help you figure that out. But typically what I do is, so let's see, how's a good way to envision this, so you know like how to measure your string. So it depends on the elasticity of the string, and you do want to try to use the thickest string that you possibly can fit in your doll. It's usually going to work better. So you can see this is how it's going to go, and it doesn't reach end to end, of course, because that's going to rely on the stretch, and that tension is going to hold everything together, and so she's not a floppy rag doll. So that's kind of gives you, and it's the same principle with the legs or any other parts. So you can test the elasticity to make sure that it's going to be able to stretch that far. So that's how I usually achieve that. Okay, so this part I'm just going to go, I start, and so the knot here, ideally the knot's going to sit in the chest. You don't want it going down into the arm, because if it goes down into one of the arms, then the tension will become unequal, and your doll won't have good tension and pose correctly. So put those on there. So I don't know if this will fit through the arm. Let's see. Yeah, it actually does. Okay, so we'll use that. Maybe. Yeah. I think for the smaller parts like the arms, I think a ribbon is the easier way to go. And it may be a little tedious, but it gets the job done. Some people use different types of wire. And a ribbon, if you're doing a really high tension part like the legs, a ribbon can really cut into your hands. You can try to use clamps to make that a little, so you're using the clamps to hold on to it instead of your hands. So I try to avoid those situations and use my brain how I can do that better, instead of hurting myself. So, but I've been there, I've been impatient, and gotten some injuries, taken out some chunks out of my hands. So I know some people, they'll string this side, and they'll string this arm, and then they'll string the, and so they can try to keep the tension as equal as possible. And I can understand that as being helpful in some regards. But I'm not going to do that. Let's see, hopefully this is still, I don't know how much, hopefully I'll be able to film this whole thing and not get cut off. I don't know how much memory I've got left for filming.